Okay, can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just do, there it is. Okay, right. So basically, I'm going to be talking to you about the trauma of parental alienation as a father who's gone through this. So let me just introduce myself. I'm John Waggies. I'm a father of two, live and work in South London, and um, I'm currently divorced. And um, it's been 6 years, part of the divorce, and in the last 3 years, I haven't managed to see the children as often as I could. So this presentation is to talk about some of the things, and I will talk about some of the things that I found. And this is based on a blog that I'd seen and found. So I'll just move forward. Okay. So when we talk about parental alienation, we are talking about where the father or the mother might not be seeing their children, and the other party is doing this on purpose in order to either distance the love and bond which that other partner might have. And that is why this is kind of called an abusive parent. And sometimes, the children are victimized through this, and the other person who is protective of that child might also feel upset, stressed, and overwhelmed through the process. So, abusive parent, the term actually means the targeted parent is being assigned the trauma reenactment role as the abusive parent. And what that means is that that person is sometimes doing this on purpose. And it's very difficult at times for some people to understand this. And as a father who's gone through this, when I've talked about it to some people have diminished or minimized my comments and said, oh, maybe you're just overthinking it. Your children still love you and so forth. And it's sometimes painful, it's sometimes really difficult. And when this is done consistently, sometimes over a couple of weeks, sometimes over months, and in my case, it's been over several years, and it's sort of made me go through different stages, and we'll talk about some of that. So the victimized child is the current child which is being induced by the narcissistic parent. So the word narcissist basically means the person who is doing this, usually part of a disorder, and they're doing this on purpose. And it seems quite difficult for a lot of people because you wouldn't think that certain partners would do that. But having sort of gone through it, I didn't even think my partner was a narcissist. And it's very difficult to kind of explain this to a lot of people, but it's also accepting that this other party is sort of doing this in order to victimize the child. So the protective parent is the narcissistic parent adopts conspicuously and displays to the child and to the others that the protective parent is not good. So they might say things like, your dad is not there for you, your dad has left you, your dad has got a mental disorder, and all of these different things. And this is not helpful for the children because children have this innate ability to love both parents. And they kind of do this automatically. And if that's taken away, then it's very difficult to cope with. So the trauma of the targeted parent, and I would sort of call myself as the targeted parent, I've gone through this over the last 3 years, and I would say that it's probably got worse. So at the beginning, my partner was letting me see the children, and I was having fun. I was taking my son to the cinema. If my son didn't come, my daughter might come, and I felt valued and had a sense of purpose. When she stopped all of that, it actually didn't make a lot of sense to me. And, I thought we were kind of both on the same page, but we definitely wasn't. And she was doing this as part of a plan, I think, to ensure that the children fall out or don't keep talking about their dad or whatever. And so I kind of never believed that what they were doing was that bad. I just thought it was my mind overthinking these things, but it wasn't until a counselor had sort of said to me that, can you not see that this ex-partner is doing this on purpose? And I couldn't accept that. And it wasn't until they started talking about gaslighting, which is the technique of slowly turning down moderately levels of threats against you and things like that. And they make you think that you're imagining these things. They make you feel insecure about yourself and blame you for a lot of the things which could be happening because of other reasons. So that's part of that trauma, the trauma being that it is definitely something that grows with time. And I found it more and more, even though I've come to terms with it, and especially coming to terms with the forgiveness and things like that, that because I'm not seeing much of my son or my daughter, and that they're not even responding to the phone calls, or that they're not talking to me, it's been difficult to say the least. And so this is kind of the four main things. So the abuse starts, the victimization starts, and there's a sense of helplessness and suffering through the process. And, it might be all of these, but different stages will come as you're going through that process. And I certainly feel a lot of this even still. And even though I'm further on in the journey, I can kind of understand and empathize with a lot of these issues, because I'm now helping other men and going on courses, and that's kind of given me the sense of empowerment and learning to cope with some of these challenges. So I'm going to talk about how we cope with the trauma. So there is a good thing behind this, and the key thing is that we as a parent need to understand it's a process, and part of that experience we need to try and help ourselves. And I really liked this article because it talked about 9 tips, and I'm just looking at the sort of time, and I'm just going to go through it pretty briefly. But one of the tips was practice smiling. So, we laughed about this before, where anyway, I'm quite a smiley person, and I was quite shocked to see a young picture of me where I was smiling, and none of the other people in that photograph was even smiling. And that's kind of when I realized that, it's an innate young ability of mine, even through the trials and tribulations, to keep smiling. And so, I've put this visual representation here, which kind of brings that to light. So keep smiling, keep practicing that smile, even with yourself, in front of the mirror, with other people. And, colleagues that I've worked with who've given me some of the best tips of, smile and be the best version of yourself and shine. I remember that kind of advice was monumental, especially not to sort of expand on stories, but, especially with my employee, when we had a very serious meeting, that instead of being quite depressed, I was still able to smile during the meeting and still keep my composure. So that's really important. And plus, it helps with the endorphins and makes you feel happier as you go through it. So remember to be happy and smile. So the second one is meditate. Now, I always shied away from meditation. I'd never done it, but ironically, in my school, we started learning about meditation, and I'd kind of sadly read that meditation is sort of not good for us as Christians. But actually, when you read the Bible more and bring into a lot of the words, it does talk about meditate on the words of God and be still and things like that. Sorry, let me just. Sorry. Okay, so meditation is wonderful, but meditation is you being with yourself and just sitting at peace and thinking about nothing but peace and try and balance. And it's always easier if you can do it with nature, which is also one of the things coming up later on. So, one of the techniques that they had told us was to do the breathing in and count from 1 to 4, and then breathe out 1 to 4. And that just helps rebuild and revitalize you. And that is an important process of this thing. Number 3 was spending time with friends and family. Now, I think a lot of people do this naturally, but the ironic thing is when you become alienated from the children, you wouldn't be able to go to your other family members and things like that. But for me, I couldn't even do that, and I was sort of alienated from them as well because of the issues and challenges that I went through. But spending time with other family members and friends is really important. So friends can be work colleagues or other people who are in close proximity, especially with community. So as we are part of a community, it's always good to work and thrive with the community. So you can share with friends, if you got family members, that you can go to movies and things. And we used to do this quite a lot, arranging dinner parties. Well, having put the picture of the chicken, it just reminded me of those good times. And I think for me, I put these things to start a conversation with other people on Instagram and things. So it's really important if you can spend time and associate with other people. Sleep is number 4. So, as you can see here, they talk about the 4 stages of sleep, but, getting enough sleep is really important. And I don't need to go into too much, but if you can have that pattern where you go to bed at a regular time and wake up at a regular time, that will really help you. And as creatives, that's difficult, but we have to think about ourselves. So it's really important that does happen, and you can increase that time, especially as we are all getting older. So make sure you get enough sleep. So that goes without saying. And while you're sleeping, you can think about where you are dreaming about things, so just try to dream while you're sleeping, and if you don't do that purposefully, then, if you got too much stress, just try and cancel that. This one is number 5, where you're helping others and, working together with rebuilding this business. I've sort of learned a lot from other work colleagues, and by helping them, I've also learned a lot. And my journey over the last 4 years has come to this point where I'm sort of now doing other courses and helping other people. But by doing that, I've learned a lot more about myself and reflecting about challenges that others have. And I think to myself, well, I could use some of those ideas and help myself as well. So the Dalai Lama has got a book called The Art of Happiness, and he talks in there, he says, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion for yourself, really. So that is a really good quote. So I just thought I would share that. And number 6, practice gratitude. So I'll wrap this up really quickly, but you've got gratitude where you're being grateful for things that is happening. So even if you're having a really bad day, you try and just think about the opposite thing and try and think about it, feel it, and try and think about the good, the pros and cons, and use that. And you could even use a gratitude journal, which is where you write a list of things that you're grateful for. And this could be a prayer which you do in the morning or evening, and that will help create this positive emotion. And that's difficult for somebody who's going through some trials, and difficult when that doesn't seem to stop. But I kind of know it's really important, and it's something that I'm working on as we are going through. So that was something which was on there. But just be grateful for life, because others might not have the same privileges. Number 7 is plan a trip. So, I am a photographer, video guy, and I stopped going on lots and lots of trips. And ironically, when I had the children, we used to go out a lot, but all of that stopped after the separation because of finances and things like that. But it's always a good idea to do that. And what I do is I partner with a friend and go and do photography. So, go with somebody and go and plan a trip, whether it's on a plane to London or even take a bus ride to somewhere different. So, think about drawing, things that will make you happy. And it could be a short trip or a long trip or a holiday, in Hawaii. So think about that. So parental alienation does bring grief, and these are the 5 stages of death, but grief is the same process, and you will be in denial. There might be anger. You try and bargain with yourself. You might end up into feeling more depressed, but you need to come to acceptance as well. So I'd seen this lovely picture, and I'd put that in there because I love the drawing, the visual element of this picture. So that's why I put that in, to help yourself. Number 8 is going outside, and nature really helps you. The sun, being around the grass and going in the woods. And, it goes without saying, nature can heal. And, somebody talked about going on a beach, and I love the sound of the ocean and the waves, but there's not many oceans near us, apart from Brighton. And I haven't gone as much as I used to a long time ago. So sometimes you just have to take a road and go out a little bit more. Exercise is number 9. And it goes without saying, I think the older we get, we do less of it, but going to the gym and trying to help yourself when you are exercising, you'll help rebuild some of that stress levels and things. So it's an emotional and psychological stress going through parental alienation. But, if you try and help yourself with exercise, taking a nap, listening to music, meditating, playing with a pet, that are some strategies to help you. So I just wanted to leave it on a positive note, and you can escape this trauma. And you probably heard about this normal thing of fight, flight, freeze, and then fawn, which is rebuilding yourself. So that's near the end. And I found this wonderful illustration. So parental alienation really affects the young child, and it's how they interact with that other parent who they don't have as much contact with as they did previously. So it can make it emotional, mental, psychological, and it has lifelong effects, not just for the parent, but also for the poor child. So with my 2 children, they've gone through quite a lot, and I think once we are through this, it will be easier to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So this is the link which I had used for this presentation, and I've just finish it there. But before I do, I wanted to sort of hear from the audience about their comments about parental alienation. So I'll take some questions now. Right.